Alrighty, welcome to part four of episode four, part four, I guess, of how to play Japan in Admiral's edition. We are episode four is all about turn one, so we're on part four. I'm trying to keep these videos down to half hour, 45 minutes each, so they're not too much information to go at once. Today's episode will be about conquering Malaysia and so forth in the airstrikes in that area. So let's move the map over to the area. As you can see, you start with a couple of bases to the north, mostly all this stuff up here in like Thailand. Most of your bombers are coming out of Indochina here, from Kompon Trak, Sok Trang, Siem Reap, so forth. All these little bases here, bunch of aircraft. You see, you got some ands and nates, not too useful. You got some Sallies here. Those might be a little useful. More Sallies. You got fighters and some Lilies here. You got some Zeros here. Saigon, you got some Nels and some Bettys. Bunch of Nels, a little bit of Bettys, along with some Sallies and some Marys. Fighters at Cam Bay, or CRB as I always abbreviate it. You got some more fighters over here. You got some aircraft here and at Samoa, which usually I use to bomb China, so we won't really include those in this. So what we're looking at is here. This is the setup on turn one. You can see you have a bunch of subs in the area. Their position is not that great, but you can adjust that. I usually like to move them down, put a nice little barrier, like right about here, in these hexes here. I like to put a couple up in the Malacca Strait for ships fleeing from Singapore. I also like to move them down here to put a barrier around Palembang, and if possible, down by Batavia and so Baja there, because that's where most of the ships will head. It'll take a couple days for them to move into position, so you'll miss most of them, but that's just what it is. You got your light covering force here of cruisers and destroyers at Patani. You got your heavy covering here, which is the Congo and the Haruna battleships, 2 heavy cruisers, a light cruisers, and half a dozen destroyers. This heavy cover here, its main job is to counter Force Z. Now it hasn't come down to Cote de Peru. I don't like that. I like to bring it down into the ocean, like here or here. That way you encounter Force Z if he comes up to play outside of where your transports are going to be. Because you can engage him here, and he still has to move. He might not have enough operation points to get up there. It all depends. So I like to move him a little bit farther south. Sometimes I'll try to put some air cover over him if you can. One of the fighter groups out of Singora. Usually put them on long range cap. Just, you don't need a whole lot of fighters over it. So if you do like 50% long range cap, 50% rest, it'll put 2 or 3 fighters over it. Now they're only nates, but at this point in the game, you're going to be going against, if he brings fighters out, Brewsters, those nates can take them. But the main thing is you might shoot down a couple bombers trying to get to your heavy cover. Probably not on so much on turn 1, but on turn 2, 3, and 4, that's when you'll be wanting to do that. Or you can fly the Zeros out of Sok Trang to put the cover on them as well, and those would definitely be shooting down some light bombers coming out of Singapore. So you can see you have no real troops here. You have some at Saigon that's coming, but most of the troops coming into Malaysia are using Magic Move out of Samoa or Japan itself. One of the divisions is coming from the East Coast of Japan at Sendai, and that's, I believe, if I remember the label on it, it is wave 3 maybe. So it's going to take a while to get over here. But basically, this is a slugfest. It really is. As soon as the war starts on turn 8, every unit here is going to Singapore. Unfortunately, there is no real Unlike the war, the Allies will not fight for these bases. They will all flee to Singapore because that's where they can do the most damage to the Japanese. Sometimes the Georgetown troops stay. I believe one of them is static, so they can't all. So that one can't run. But you can't get troops into Malaysia fast enough to stop these guys without doing the Mersing gambit. Doing the Mersing gambit on turn 1 is very dangerous because what that is, the Mersing gambit is landing troops at Mersing right here, taking Mersing, then moving west 1 hex along the roads here, taking this base here, cutting the rail from the north, and trapping all these troops outside of Singapore. If you can pull this off, it makes it really. I mean, you'll kill 2, 3, 4 brigades worth of troops in the northern Singapore if you can get there fast enough. Which means they're not in Singapore, over the shock attack, behind forts, and so forth. It makes the conquest of Singapore much easier. But it's not as simple as it sounds. If you do a Mersing gambit on turn 1, and Force Z comes out to play, he's on a run right into you. And if you miss the interception with your heavy cover or whatever else you're using to cover that invasion force, whatever troops you're sending to Mersing, Force Z will kill. He will wipe out the transports. Force Z, remember, it doesn't sound big, but it's a full battleship. It's a battle cruiser. I believe there's a light cruiser they usually get added into Force Z, and 2 or 3 destroyers. Against, transports, that is bad news. If you're lucky, they'll only damage a few ships, and you only lose a few hundred troops into the water. If you're unlucky, he'll wipe them all out, and whatever you sent there, possibly a full division is just gone. Which means you have to buy them back, and that takes a month, and it's just... Mersing gambit on turn 1 is really risky. You have to be very aggressive and really lucky to pull that off without any trouble. The risk for me is way too high. Now, landing a Mersing on turn 2, that's a lot more reasonable. Because turn 2, you know where Force Z is. Force Z is either sunk because it came out to play, or it's running up the Straits of Malacca, or it's heading south into the DEI. It's going one of those two directions. Well, one of those 3. If he came out to play, he's probably sunk or heavily damaged between your battleships and all the netties sitting up here in Saigon on naval attack. See, some are on night, the rest are on day. They will put some damage into Force Z, and normally, if Force Z comes up, my netties sink it. Every time I've had that happen, I've sunk the battle cruiser and the battleship, Repulse and Prince of Wales go to the bottom of the sea. Or if they're really, really lucky, they each take like 2 or 3 torpedoes and they limp away. Which means they're out of the war for a good 6, 9 months or more if they can make it to a port and survive. You don't need to kill Force Z on turn 1. You need to know where it's at. You need to wipe out the aspect of them doing anything to you. If you can cripple Force Z and they have to run up to India or down to Australia for 6 months, that's great. They can't interfere in the DEI operations. That's the biggest threat, Force Z, because of the battleships. I mean, now there's a handful of cruisers down here too, but your heavy cruisers and your battleships can make mincemeat of them. The only real ships you have to truly fear if you're escorting your invasion convoys correctly is the Prince of Wales and the Repulse. So if you can wipe them out or force them to flee to India, that's the way to go. If they flee into the DEI, you will face them again most likely, so you have to cover your task force. If you're going to try the Mersing gambit on a turn 2, you might want to bring some carriers over. What I've done in the past, only once or twice, because I'm not a big fan of this. I wouldn't say a big fan, but it really lessens your attack with KB. Is I bring Carrier Division 3, which is the Shokaku and the Zuikaku, along with some escorts. I park them down here by Linga, or right around in this area on turn 1. You can put them into a magic task force and get them over here easily. What that does, if Force Z heads north, your carriers won't get them, but your netties, and your heavy cover battleships will. If they get beat up there and flee south, Carrier Division 3 will sink them. If they flee up the Straits of Malacca, you might get them on with some aircraft here, and you might get them from with the netties out of Saigon as well, because they could reach into the Straits, which is why a lot of people don't go there. If they flee south, remember, turn 1, due to the nature of turn 1, there's only one naval movement phase. There is, so they can move, and they'll move like six hexes, and that's all they're gonna get. That goes with any allied ship, any ship, to be honest, that isn't a Magic Task Force. They only get one movement phase on turn 1. So if you're sitting down here with 2 full carrier wings, full carrier division, and he comes down here, he'll get maybe down by Palembang, down in this area here. That's all the farther he'll get. Well, if he ends up here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's well within range. Your torpedo, your Kates, and your Valves will attack. Now the Valves won't do much damage to them, but the Kates can. Any damage you could put into them, or even sink them, that means they're not around. Force Z is important to know where it went, or to sink it or heavily damage it on turn 1. If it heads north, it's not a threat till later. If it heads south, it will be a threat for your DEI operations. Best bet for Japan is sinking them. Next best is heavily damaging them. If you put 2 or 3 torpedoes into each one, but you don't sink them, they might limp down to Perth or Sydney into the repair yards, but they're going to be there 9 months, and by then the DEI is gone. You've taken it. You didn't get to sink them and get the points, but it's a mission kill. They are out of the war for that length of time. By the time they come back, they will be going against your defensive perimeter. If they flee to India, unless they come up and go around the west side of Sumatra as a trick, if they come up into India or Burma and hide, same thing. They're out of the war. They're not messing with you in the DEI. So you need to decide, along with, is Malaya your priority in the early war, or Luzon? You need to pick one with whatever reasoning you want, according to your strategy, and then that's where you send the bulk of your troops. The extra 3 divisions I already talked about, you'll send those there to hurry up the conquest. I usually choose Malaya because I think Singapore is more important than Manila. If you don't have Singapore, the straits are kind of locked to you. You can't really do anything up in Burma. Once you have Singapore, Sumatra, Java, all the DEI is wide open to you. The next big base they have is going to be is way down here in Java at Batavia. And then out of there, you're coming down to Surabaya, and once that falls, there's really nothing left around here. There are some decent bases, but there's really no strong points. So Malaysia is my usual priority target. I think a lot of people put a lot of troops into Malaysia to take it quick. Because once Malaysia falls, you can move into Sumatra and so forth to get all the oil and all the goodies. So basically, you turn 1, your troops will land at Singora. I think you even have some landing up here at Nakhon and Patani. They will come in here and unload. Offensive movements are at Kota Baru. You'll come in and land like two regiments here, which means on turn 2 you can attack, and you should have enough firepower there to push these defenders out. And then as soon as you take this, you want to start moving in your planes. You want to put some fighters here to cover your ships as you're unloading, and you want to move some of those crappy bombers, those Idas, those Sonyas, those Marys down here and start bombing troops. If you're doing with the Mersing Gambit, you still want to take Kota Baru. You still want to land up here, but you're going to put a couple regiments or more into Mersing. You'll take that and then quickly move west and block this hex, and then all you do is sit and hold. You don't move out, you don't go south, you don't go north, you sit here and hold. You can bring more troops in to protect it, because he does have some troops down here. But the thing is, you want to hold, block the rail. He might come down and engage you in a fight in this hex. He may not. He may just let his men sit there, and then you just have to clean them up. You move south, clean them up, pushing them in front of you, killing them as you go. If you're able to cut them off, like I said, there's 3 to 4 brigades worth of troops here. If they get down into Singapore, it makes Singapore a lot harder. I know people have successfully cut them off, and then taken Singapore in early January, which is crazy ahead of schedule. But so just so you know what is possible. Then of course you're going to want to clean up these islands here. Slowly pick up all these islands. You want to be careful taking Palembang too early, because then he could bomb your oil. There's a lot of stuff that's a whole different video, and stuff you have to worry about for that. We'll handle that in a different video. So basically what you do for your airstrikes, there are a lot of aircraft in Malaysia. You want to load in as the allies and take a look at what's where. There's a bunch of ships in Singapore. There's a bunch of ships in Georgetown Port. You may want to bomb them. That's going to be up to you. So all the bombers here, you do not want to take the Nels and Bettys off of naval attack on turn 1. Now, they may not do anything, but if Force Z goes north, even if you brought carriers over here, unless you brought carriers to the north, you're better off bringing them down in this area. So if Force Z goes north, and you don't have those aircraft on naval attack, and your heavy cover misses them, doesn't intercept them, or even so they intercept and somehow you lose that fight, they're gonna rampage through all these transports. You just magically turned one magic move up into northern Malaya here without those netties. Now the odds of him coming north, maybe 1 in 10% time people might do that. Odds are they won't. But are you willing to risk, a division and a half of troops that'll take you, 6 months to buy back and get back up to full strength? That'd be horrible. That would totally wipe out your entire timetable. So you can't take the risk. Leave him on naval attack for first turn. No matter what happens on turn 1, if he runs away, whatever. If he's in the Malacca Strait, you can try to leave him on naval attack, because they will reach in here and hit some ships. So you may even fleeing like merchant ships. So you might want to leave like 1 Sinte on naval attacks to pick off a few ships as they try to run away. But then you can switch them over to bombing, and they can use them to support the attacks here, whether you're hitting airfields or just troops. Some of these are rough areas to hit troops in the mountains. Some of them are nice and clear. So it depends. What I like to do a lot of times too, I'll start using the netties out of Saigon and bombing Singapore airfield, or possibly even Johor Bahru airfield too. What you do when you bomb the airfield and do damage to the airfield, they cannot build forts. They must repair all the damage to the airfield or the port before they can build any forts. I don't pick port because port hits aren't that useful. Port attacks will most likely hit ships, and after turn 1, there's not going to be really any ships left. So hit the airfield. Not only does that stop his aircraft from taking off and being effective, plus you might get kills, it stops the forts. You don't want Singapore building, 2 or 3 levels of forts before you get there, because that'll just make your job much harder. You gotta be careful you don't allow too many losses on your netties. So once you start moving down here and take these larger airfields, bring your Sallies in, and then let Sallies bomb the airfields. But if you can pull off some kind of Mercian gambit and take and block the rail to stop these guys from fleeing, you will save yourself weeks of attacks on Singapore if you could trap these troops. You got about 3 days to do it. By the time now the ones out here in the middle, they cannot immediately hop on the rail. They have to move to a base and then hop on a rail. But all the ones here, all these guys are already on rails. They will go to strap mode on turn 1, on turn 2. So anywhere from 1 to 3 turns delay, depends on what size unit it is, and then they're moving south. So if you land a Mersing on turn 2, you take it on turn 3, and you bring some tanks, they'll move over on turn 4 and block it. That will probably stop most of the larger units from moving south. Anything more than like day 6 or 7, forget it. They're already gone. Just that's just what it is. Now some of them aren't on the rail, like the troops at Quantan are not on a rail, so you can easily catch them. This guy is kind of trapped because he's kind of in the middle. You might be able to catch him because he has to move 2 hexes to get to a base where he can hop on the rail. Georgetown's not on the rail, but that's why a lot of times those units just stay there. But everyone else is on a rail to start. So that's basically the invasion of Malaysia, whatever you want, whatever pronunciation you would like to use. For the first 2-3 weeks of the war, you will be continuously pumping troops into here. As I said, Wave 2, Wave 3 are not magic move transports, and they start farther away. On your turn 1, you could also try to merge those with some magic troop transport, some magic move transports to get them here quicker. 1 or 2 of them is really easy to do, but you still have troops unloaded at Sendai, which east coast of Japan on the map right here. There's no way you're gonna load these infantry regiments and get them moving anytime soon. See, this one is Kuching invasion, but really you probably want these guys to go to Malaysia because they're troops from a division you're sending to Malaysia. And you can see this is not a magic move transport, so it'll take him 3 weeks to get over there. Same thing with the extra divisions. It'll take time for you to get them over there. Time to load them up. Time to get transports there. You're talking several weeks before you get all your troops into Malaysia. By then, but it's not like you won't have things to do. You'll be marching a lot of time, marching, waiting, a day or 2 to take a base, and then march. Day or 2 to take a base, march. That's just what it is. A lot of times you'll bring your regiments in, your infantry, your tanks will be a day or 2 ahead down the road here, pushing troops ahead and taking bases, and just put your regiments in strat mode and just rail them down as you can. Let the tanks go forward, pushing everything in front of you. So, but that's pretty much what it is. Like I said, also as you take bases over here, bring in some engineers and AV support, build them up, and start moving your aircraft from Indochina area over. You don't need to move the Netties, but the little baby bombers, the Sonyas, the Idas, the Marys, the Lilies, the Sallys. You want to bring over fighters as well to cover your landings and your bases. You'll know right away if he's going to fight for Singapore in the air, if he's going to pull everything out. It varies. So a lot of it is reactionary. So just kind of watch some people's videos that do it for their turn 1, 2, 3, 4. The first couple week or so of the war, and see how try to find someone who's doing videos with someone who's fighting. Try to find someone's just running away, and watch them, see what the differences is, to see what you can do to offset both. But that's what it is. That'll be it for this video. If you liked the video, please go ahead and give me a like. If you are enjoying this little mini series, which is getting longer every time, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until my next video, guys, you all have a great day, and we'll see you later.